Hi guys, Matt Schlicht from ZapChain here, and I'm here with Nick Tomaino, Business Development Manager at Coinbase, which is one of the largest Bitcoin companies, if you are not already on there. So welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for helping us with the Bitcoin course and helping us educate the millions of people about Bitcoin.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
So tell us a little bit about Coinbase.
So Coinbase, our mission as a company is to make Bitcoin really easy to use for mainstream consumers, merchants, and developers. So if you think about companies like Netscape and AOL, what they did for the internet, which was take this really difficult to use technology for mainstream users and bring it to the masses, that's essentially what we're doing at Coinbase, is bringing the Bitcoin technology, which for the first 5 years has been something relatively difficult to use for a non-technical user, and bring that to the masses.
Right, and you're doing it with over $30 million in capital and over 40 employees now, I think. Like you're one of the fastest growing Bitcoin companies.
That's right, yes. When I started last November remotely, we had 10 employees, and now we're up to, I think, over 45. We're adding an employee or two new each week, so it's been exciting.
And now in an amazing office, if you can see out the window. This is what you probably just do better work.
Yeah.
Like looking at this, you're like, I can see everything.
Absolutely, yeah, it's a pretty sweet office for sure. A big upgrade from our last office, which was a 2-story loft. So.
Which still sounds pretty cool,
Yeah.
but like this is definitely way better.
Yeah.
So how did you get into Bitcoin?
So I have kind of a unique path. So I first stumbled upon Bitcoin probably 3.5 years ago when I was working at a venture capital firm in Maine. And it was kind of at the intersection of my two passions, which are finance and technology. And I majored in econ in undergrad, and then worked at a venture capital firm focused on technology. So I've always been like a big message board guy and big on Reddit. And I think I first stumbled across it on Reddit. And it was kind of a curiosity for a couple years, but not something that I really was passionate about diving into. And I ended up working in New York City at SoftBank Capital, and this was about a year and a half ago at this point. And the partner at SoftBank that I was working for wanted me to dive into the Bitcoin community in New York City. So I started going to every single Bitcoin meetup I could, started going to Satoshi Square, meeting folks in the Bitcoin community, and just understanding kind of what was going on in this passionate community. And it was around that time that I was introduced to Fred and Brian, the founders, and basically bugged them a bunch, convinced them that I could add value, and ended up here. So I ended up going to business school on the East Coast at Yale, and so I was doing that and also working for Coinbase remotely starting last November.
So you were like, I'm going to work here, but I'm going to also go to Yale.
Yes. So I ended up starting Yale, and then about 2 months in, got really passionate about Bitcoin, and like that's all I wanted to think about. So I ended up, while I was at Yale, spending much more time on Bitcoin than actually at Yale.
So did you stop going to Yale?
So yes, so I ended up moving out to San Francisco in May, and after about a month decided that I didn't want to go back to Yale. And so now I'm fully on board at Coinbase full time and deferred at Yale. So
I think that was a good choice.
I think so too. Yeah, it was really a no-brainer for me. And I mean, I've thought a lot about like making this decision, and to me, when thinking about like why I went to Yale in the first place, a lot of it had to do with wanting a stamp of approval. That's like a big reason that people go to business school, I would say. It's fun too, and you meet a lot of really smart people, but the stamp of approval is big. And when thinking about Bitcoin and how Bitcoin changes the world, I believe that stamps of approval are going to be increasingly unimportant. So when you think about financial services and how transactions are exchanged and how value is transferred across the world, historically, you've always needed a trusted third party, right? And when it comes to these trusted third parties, like brand is very important and stamp of approval is very important. But Bitcoin is the first technology that enables trustless transfers, right? Two individuals that don't know each other can exchange value without a trusted third party. And so thinking about like how financial services and really the world is going to evolve, I kind of felt that this brand, the Yale brand and the trust, the stamp of approval is going to be, less relevant. And so that combined with just my, passion for Bitcoin is what inspired me to kind of leave. So.
I mean, again, I think it was a good choice.
Yeah.
Coinbase is doing really well. You
Mm-hmm.
probably will never go back to Yale. maybe
Probably
one day, but probably
Yeah.
not. So what did you join Coinbase to do originally?
So business development, and what that means for us is primarily focusing on onboarding merchants to use Bitcoin. When you think about what's happened in Bitcoin the past year, in the U.S. in particular, most of it has been on the merchant side, and for merchants, using Bitcoin is really a no-brainer. When you think about the costs associated with using the existing financial infrastructure, Bitcoin is significantly better. So I spend most of my time talking to merchants about the benefits of Bitcoin and also thinking about the new kind of use cases for Bitcoin and consumer behaviors that Bitcoin can enable.
So when you're talking to these merchants, what are some of the merchants that Coinbase has like onboarded to Bitcoin so far?
So in the past 9 months, some of the brand name merchants that we've onboarded include Dell, Wikipedia, Expedia, Overstock.com, most recently this week United Way. So a wide variety of merchants, both in e-commerce and in nonprofits. Those are kind of two of the big segments right now.
Well, and these are like big names. Like everybody watching has probably heard of every single company you just mentioned.
Yep.
Which is crazy because last year that wasn't true.
Mm-hmm.
This year it is true.
Yep.
Like that's 5-6 years ago Bitcoin wasn't even a thing.
Yep.
And like now they're accepting this new like currency. It's pretty crazy. So when you're on the phone with them or you're going and meeting with them and you're like talking to Overstock, what like most people when they think of Bitcoin, they don't know what it is and they think, oh, this is magic internet money.
Yeah.
I don't exactly know what it is. Maybe it's not real.
Yep.
But now you're talking to Overstock and you're like, Overstock, you should be integrating, you should be accepting Bitcoin. Like, what do you tell them that gets them to do that?
Yeah. Well, the awesome thing for us, I would say, is that most of the big brand name merchants that we've onboarded thus far have come to us. So it's been someone internal at Overstock, like Patrick Byrne, the CEO, or at Dell, or most of these big companies have had like an internal champion that was really passionate about Bitcoin, and then it was just about like finding the right partner. And for most of these big merchants, we're the clear right partner. But yeah, so we've been kind of lucky in that sense that a lot of it has been the big merchants coming to us. But when we also do outbound and meetings with people that are new to Bitcoin, and really there are a few things that are really compelling to them. One is the passionate community that these brands want to connect with. So I think that's something that people don't realize is that the Bitcoin community is really passionate and believes in certain values like transparency and inclusion, and wants to support big merchants that support it. So and it's an interesting demographic as well, in that most of the users right now are male. They tend to be kind of early adopters and affluent. So for brands that want to connect to this really passionate group of early adopters, Bitcoin, there's no better solution right now than Bitcoin. Additionally, the cost savings benefits are clear. When a merchant uses traditional financial infrastructure, it generally costs between 2 and 4% just to receive the payment. And with Bitcoin, any merchant can use our tools for free, receive payments from anywhere in the world instantly and for free, and so that 2 to 4% savings is pretty significant.
Right.
Additionally, and this is something that people not in payments don't realize, is that chargebacks and fraud are a huge pain point for merchants. So, someone like Overstock has a lot of overhead, a team of over 20 managing fraud, and still are losing millions of dollars a year in card not present fraud because credit cards weren't built for the internet. Right? Bitcoin, because it's pushed by nature, when a payment's made, it's instant and irreversible, and so for merchants, the chargebacks and fraud are eliminated.
Saving them up to millions of dollars too.
Yeah, generally we estimate that it's another between 3 and 5% that they save just from the elimination of chargebacks and fraud. And then lastly, the global nature. And when you think about the millions of users from around the world that are coming online, and for a merchant that wants to be able to accept money from anywhere in the world instantly, Bitcoin makes a lot of sense. There's no other global payment network right now that can allow them to do that.
Right. So, in the past, let's say 9 months at Coinbase, you've been focusing on getting more big merchants to accept Bitcoin. And that's worked out really, really well. I mean, basically every week you guys have a new announcement, like, oh, we just got this new major company that you probably already used to, now they accept Bitcoin. And so that's huge. So is that kind of what you're focused on going forward as well? Like, just let's get more merchants on here?
I would say our strategy has shifted a bit. So for the past 9 months, it's been really important for the credibility of both Bitcoin and Coinbase for us to onboard brand names that people have heard of, right? And that's helped in getting kind of mainstream consumers interested. When they see, oh, Dell is accepting Bitcoin, now I can buy a computer with Dell, or Wikipedia is now accepting Bitcoin for donations, I can donate with Bitcoin on Wikipedia, and they're gonna get 100% of what I'm giving rather than 98% or something like that. That's helpful. But right now we're at a point where we're spending a lot of time thinking about, like, what are the use cases where Bitcoin can create new consumer behaviors, and kind of use cases that aren't possible for existing infrastructure. So, like, adding a payment on a traditional e-commerce site, that's something that's been done for since the early days of the internet, right? And it's not anything that can't be done with Bitcoin. But a use case like micropayments and payment, tipping someone 5 cents when you like an article, something like that, that's not possible with existing financial infrastructure, right? Because of the economics associated with the existing infrastructure. So we're spending a lot of time thinking about, like, what are these really new use cases that Bitcoin enables.
That's awesome. So for micropayments, right, that's specifically for everyone that's watching, it's sending 5 cents, 20 cents, maybe even like $1, something really tiny. And then I guess, so the problem with the current payment systems for microtransactions is that, like, maybe you have to, like, pay 30 cents to actually send the transaction, right?
So for a merchant to receive a payment with PayPal, for example, or any Visa, MasterCard, whatever it is, there's generally a fixed fee associated with receiving that transaction, generally between 15 and 30 cents. And on top of that, there's another 2 to 3%.
Right.
So for it's not possible for someone on PayPal to receive 5 cents, right?
Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Yes.
Because I'd be like, oh, I'm going to tip Nick 5 cents because I really like this blog post he wrote.
Right.
But really, I'm going to be paying like 30 cents or 40 cents
Exactly.
for that 5 cents, which doesn't make any sense.
So that's a consumer behavior that we're really excited about. And there's, like, I've done a lot of research on the history of kind of micropayments online, and it's actually it's been it's something that entrepreneurs have been working on for 20 years. People talk a lot about the original sin of the internet, which was that the revenue model for internet companies is advertising.
Right.
And so people have been trying to solve this and getting consumers to pay directly for content. And there have been a lot of closed loop networks, right, where you had to get dollars onto this network, and then within this closed loop network, you could spend really small amounts and tip. But there was a lot of friction in getting onto the network and off the network. And so Bitcoin is the first open network that's interoperable anywhere on the internet, and you can send money anywhere, any amount, frictionlessly, right? And so we're really excited about content creators. Think a new video network that content creators can go on and add a Coinbase tip widget, and when a viewer checks it out, if they like it, they can tip them 5 cents, and that content creator can get paid directly rather than through advertising. Which, when you think about the business model for content creators on YouTube, they get millions of views and make hundreds of dollars from advertising.
If that.
So we think that this is a really compelling new use case, and it's still in the early days. And we're spending time talking to lots of different networks about integrating. I'm excited about a few that are kind of in later stages of integrating this into their platform.
No, I think that's super exciting because, it's kind of funny if you ask someone, oh, if you read this blog post or you watched this video, would you give that person money? And typically, when you think of giving someone money, you're thinking like $1, $5, $10. Mm-hmm. Whereas they're not actually used to thinking about it like 5 cents, and you would totally give 5 cents.
Right.
You just you've never had the opportunity to do that, and so you've never considered it.
Right.
So I think it could really catch on. And the other thing is, maybe for everyone watching, there aren't tip buttons on YouTube right now. Mm-hmm. It's not on every website you go to. And so it is kind of crazy to think that, if you guys made that functionality, wouldn't that be really hard to get everybody to do it? But I think it's important for people to remember that, it wasn't that long ago that share buttons didn't even exist on the internet. Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
Yep, and the Facebook like is an example we point to, which was created 7 years ago. That's now widely used, and all the Facebook like is an expression of value, right? When you like an article or like your friend's post on Facebook, you're communicating an expression of value that you appreciated that. And Bitcoin is a new expression of value, and it's interoperable, as I said, anywhere on the internet. So I view this as a progression of a Facebook like or a Twitter share.
It's probably even more meaningful too, because I can just kind of go click like on everything, and there's not much impact on me.
Yep.
But if there's even a really tiny amount, really small amount of Bitcoin associated with that, then I'm probably going to think about it's going to be more meaningful to me when I click like.
That's right.
So I think it'll happen. I think that's super cool that you guys are thinking about stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think the reality is that we're still in the early days, right? And Bitcoin is the first open payment network that any developer who has an idea about a financial services related company can build on top of. And Coinbase, I mentioned the merchant and the consumer side, but we also are very focused on the developer side, and we have a robust API that makes Bitcoin easy to use for developers. We have over 5,000 developers building applications on top of the platform. So we think that a lot of this innovation and the new consumer behaviors are going to be created by the community, and we're part of the community, so we're thinking about this, but we want to be kind of the infrastructure that makes Bitcoin apps possible, basically.
Yeah, I think that Coinbase, started 2 years ago-ish, and a couple other companies are out there that have been, they're starting to raise capital, they're starting to grow their teams, they're starting to do cool things. Mm-hmm. But right now, to move to the next level, we probably need more developers, building more things so that they can make things that none of us can think of. Mm-hmm. and then we can just use them. So that's really cool that you guys are pushing the API and encouraging developers to do that. So when you talk to like the merchants, you're obviously the main point is probably, yes, we can help you accept Bitcoin, and people can buy stuff for Bitcoin, and you'll make more money, and this is great for everyone. You'll attract the younger male audience that has money. But is there any conversation to like Bitcoin as a protocol?
Absolutely, and I think that particularly for people that are new to the concept of Bitcoin, that's kind of one of the biggest misunderstandings, I would say. People that aren't able to differentiate between Bitcoin, the digital currency, and Bitcoin, the protocol and payment network. And what we tell merchants is you can use the protocol and the payment network to receive payments more efficiently without worrying about the digital currency. And in the 5+ years of Bitcoin, the media has generally focused on the digital currency, right? And the volatility of the currency, its use on Silk Road for buying guns and drugs, right? Things like that. And the service we provide merchants is instantly converting Bitcoin to dollars. So when Overstock receives $1,000 worth of Bitcoin for a TV, we're instantly converting that Bitcoin to dollars and delivering those dollars to Overstock's bank account. So they don't have to worry about the volatility, they don't have to worry about the digital currency, they're just receiving payments more efficiently.
That's awesome. So, thank you so much for sharing your insights on Bitcoin with us, especially because you've been at Coinbase and you're the one that's working on these big deals, to get major companies starting to accept Bitcoin. The number of people that have the perspective you do in the world on Bitcoin is really, really tiny. And so thanks for sharing that with us and everybody watching.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been fun. Thanks for having me.
Cool. All right. Bye, guys.